Hey, fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. Michael Pachter, glad to have you here. Hope you're watching this real time as a patron on our Patreon page. If you are contributing, thank you so much. Please, any little extra pennies you can pledge. Shane's dying here. I'm afraid that I'm going to have to go away and find a real job if you don't continue to support Shane. And if you are watching on YouTube as a subscriber, thank you so much. Please also remember to link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. They will pay us. It costs you nothing, and the instructions are in the show description below. If you're doing none of those things, you better be following me on Twitter at Michael Pachter. Today's question from SIFTD from Kev Masters. Why do game companies go public and decide to be traded on the stock market? What are the pros and cons? Is it a necessity for a company to grow? How much sway do stockholders really have over companies' behavior? Why do companies like Valve stay private? Okay, that's kind of all I do for a living, so I could answer this in a few years, or I could just answer it quickly. Going public is a way to raise capital to grow the business. It's also a way for the founders of the company to monetize and sell a portion of their ownership. So I'll use Amazon as probably the best example. I mean, I could talk about game companies, but Amazon was a bookseller, and they decided they wanted to go from selling books to selling other stuff. And in order to do that, they had to build more warehouses. So they needed to raise capital because warehouses cost tens of millions of dollars each. So they went public and they raised capital. You know, the stock went public at like, I don't know, $5 a share, $10 a share. And as they got bigger and bigger, they issued more stock and more stock and more stock. So Jeff Bezos went from owning essentially all the company to owning, I want to say, 17%, something like that, before he got divorced. Maybe it was 20. He sold 80% of the stock. Bill Gates went from owning essentially all of Microsoft to owning a small percentage, but he's still a multi-billionaire. So you sell stock to raise capital to expand the business. And if you expand the business, your revenues go up and the value of the company goes up. So, you know, in the game context, you know, Activision, when I started covering them in 2001, and they went public in 92, they were a $300 million company. Microsoft just bought them for $75 billion. So how do you grow? You can stay private, and if you stay private, you can reinvest the capital that you generate, and you can grow that way. So Valve and Epic are both like that. But if you're a company like Unity or Roblox, who decided that they needed a lot more capital to grow, they went public. Unity went public and raised a couple $1 billion, made a couple of acquisitions, issued some convertible bonds for another $1 billion, $1.5 billion, and now they have some cash. They don't make money yet, you know. So if you don't make money, you go public. And I think most of the ones who are public, though, being a public company gives you access to public equity markets. Any private company can borrow money, but a private company can't go and say, hey, how about if I sell you 10% of my company? Can't do that. If you're public, you can. Hey, stock market, I'll add 10% more shares and put them out there. So AMC movie theaters, GameStop, were both potentially bankrupt, and AMC issued a bunch of stock at inflated levels. GameStop issued, I want to say, 8 million shares at around $200. You know, so they raised something like, what's that, $1.6 billion, and they paid off $800 million of debt, and they have about $1 billion in the bank. Like, brilliant. So that's why you're public, because when you have debt, you can get out of it. And so, honestly, why does Valve stay private? I don't think Gabe Newell wants to work for anybody. I learned this early in my career. When you work for a public company, no matter what your position, including CEO, you have a boss. And the CEO's boss is the board's boss is the shareholders. So your question, like, you know, do stockholders, how much sway do they have over company behavior? The biggest thing they can do is vote with their wallet and sell the stock if they don't like what's going on. So Activision shares were at 104 when all the sexual discrimination and harassment stuff surfaced. dropped to 65. And Bobby was in danger of being fired. I don't think he would have been, but you had some employees doing walkouts and insisting Bobby be fired. If the shareholders weren't selling the stock went from 104 to 124, shareholders would be like, we love Bobby, he's making us money. But this was, we hate Bobby, we just lost 40%. So yes, shareholders matter. You can have noisy employees, nobody actually cares. Noisy shareholders, everybody cares because they vote with their wallet. And by the way, consumers vote with their wallet. You boycott the company if you don't like what they're doing. Thanks for joining us on this week's Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. And thank you for your patronage on Patreon. Thank you for your subscription on YouTube. Thank you for linking your Prime account to your Twitch Prime account so we can get paid. And thanks for following me on Twitter. All four are fine. You can do all of the above, and we appreciate it. See you next time.